What's up, Coding 2? Mr. Agnos here. We had a really weird year last year, so we're definitely going to spend a lot of time at the beginning of this year doing some review of the Khan Academy stuff that we learned last year, since really we didn't even touch it the second half of the year. So I'm going to start off with a basic shapes review. In this video, I'm going to take a look at 5 or 6 of the basic shapes, show you all their features so you remember how to use them. All right. I like to work with a black background. I just think it looks cooler. So remember to change your background. We type in background, we put a parentheses, and it will auto-fill to red. I'm then going to go ahead and hover over that little box and drag it all the way down into the corner. We'll talk about colors in a different video, but basically when it's all zeros, it's going to be black. All right, the first shape that I'm going to talk about is the ellipse. Ellipse is a mathematical word for ovals and circles. Ellipse has 4 parameters. We have the x and y position of the center of the ellipse. Then we have the width, which is how wide the ellipse is, and the height. So I'm going to go ahead and I want my ellipse to be somewhere, I'm going to see if this tool works. I want my ellipse to be somewhere in this area right here. And if you remember that our screen here, this is 0. And then going this direction right here brings us to 400 in the x direction. And then going down, this brings us to 400 in the y direction. Now in math class, this would be negative 400, right? Because we went down. But here in this Khan Academy environment, we go down, that brings us to 400 this direction, and we go to the right, and that brings us 400 in this direction. Oh noes, just be quiet. All right, so I want my ellipse somewhere in this area, so maybe I'll center it at 50, 50, and I'll make it 60 pixels wide and 80 pixels tall, and there it is. A lot of times I like just to get the shape on the screen and then we can number scrub. So if I click on one of these numbers, it brings up this little tab here and I can just move it to the right or to the left, and that helps me move my ellipse around. It's moving left and right because I'm using the x coordinate, and if I number scrub on the y coordinate, it will go up and down. If I number scrub on the width, my ellipse will get wider or it'll get skinnier. And if I number scrub on the height, my ellipse will get taller or it will get shorter. All right, if you want your ellipse to be a perfect circle, make sure that your width and your height are exactly the same number. So I'm going to make this 60 by 60, and you'll see that now it's a perfect circle. All right, so that is the ellipse. We're not going to focus on color or anything in this video. I'll do that in a different video. All right, another shape that we learned was the rectangle. The code for that is rect. It also has, well, it actually has 5 parameters, although this last one where it says radius, that's optional. You don't have to have that one. All right, so a rectangle, it also has an x and y coordinate, but it doesn't use the center. It uses the upper left-hand corner. So I want my rectangle to be maybe like somewhere over here. So if this is like 200, then I'll make the x coordinate like 210, 220. So I'll say 220. I'll make the y coordinate like 50. And I'll make it 80 pixels wide and 40 pixels tall. And there it is. So again, this 220, 50, that corresponds to the upper left-hand corner right here. Okay, rectangles do have a hidden 5th parameter. Or I shouldn't say hidden, I should say optional parameter. And what that 5th parameter does is it rounds off the corners. So if I go ahead and I put a 1 here, it might be hard to notice because I only put a 1, but let's see what happens when I change it to a 2, and then a 3, and then a 4, 5, and you can see as the number is getting bigger, the corners on my rectangle are now rounded. And at a certain point, you can't really tell a difference. For me, I usually use up to about 30, and I think after 30, maybe even 20, you can't really tell a difference. So if you want a rectangle with rounded corners, somewhere between 0 and 20 is probably your best bet. If you go negative, you get this weird design. And some kids have used that in the past. I never have, but I've seen a lot of kids use that. So the hidden fifth parameter rounds your corners. All right, that is a rectangle. Another shape we learned last year was a triangle. And so for that command, we actually go ahead and type in triangle. Triangles are kind of a pain to use because you have to enter the x and y coordinates of all 3 corners. So these can be a little more difficult to use. What I like to do is just get my triangle on the screen and then number scrub it to where I want. So I'm going to start off with one vertex, maybe at 50, 200, and then maybe I'll go over 100 and down 200, and maybe I'll go over 75 and down 200. And I don't see anything. That's because I made them all the same height. So basically we have a straight line here. I'm going to take this one. There we go. Right? So there's a triangle. Now this might not be the triangle that you want. So I like to just get it on the screen, and now I can number scrub it. So I'm going to try and make this an equilateral triangle. So these first 2 numbers, that's my first coordinate. That's the one up here on the upper left. So I want to move that down and to the left. So I'm going to make this bigger, and then I'm going to move it to the left. All right. My second coordinate is right here. I like where that one is. And my third coordinate is over here. So I want to move that one to the right. So I'll go over to this x right here. Nope. It's going to be this x. And there's a triangle. So you guys can see just from me working with it, triangles can be a bit more confusing. They're definitely helpful. You'll probably use them a lot. You just got to practice. So get it on the screen and then number scrub it to where you want it to go. All right. Another shape that we learned last year was called the quad. Quad stands for quadrilateral. And if you thought the triangle was difficult to use, the quad is even more so because it has 4 sets of coordinates that you have to enter for all 4 corners. So I'm just going to enter some coordinates here real quick. Hopefully I'll get it right this time. Boom. All right. So there's a quadrilateral. Quadrilateral means 4-sided. And again, once I have it on there, I can then just sort of number scrub and get it to where I want. All right. So this allows you to make sort of irregular shapes. Right. I can make kind of weird shapes like this and so on. So again, it can be tricky to use. The more you use them, the better you'll get at maneuvering them around the screen and making them look the way you want. So don't be afraid of them. Just do it and use it. Remember, you always have an x and then a y coordinate. An x and then a y coordinate. An x, what did I do? An x and then a y and an x and then a y. All right. I'm actually going to move this quad up. So I'm going to move all of the y coordinates up. And the last shape I'm going to show you in this video is the arc. And arcs really come in handy, especially for making things like smiles or eyes or anything like that. An arc is, think of it as part of an ellipse. So an arc has the x and y position of the center of the arc, a width, a height, and then a start position and a stop position. So let me go ahead and I'm going to try and put one over in this corner right here. So I'll say 300, 300. So that's going to be the center of my arc. I'll make it 100 pixels wide and 50 units tall. And I'm going to start it at 0 degrees and go to 180 degrees. All right, there is my arc. Okay. So these first two numbers control the center. The center of this arc is right here. So you can kind of think of it as like half an ellipse, right? But that's what we mean by the center of the arc. The width and the height of the arc hopefully are obvious. When it says the height, I think it means that this distance right here, if you guys can see that pink line, is actually 25. The entire height would be the 50, would be that. But because I'm only showing you half of it, we're only getting half of the height, I think. And then I think most important are these start position and stop position. All right, 0 degrees is right here. 90 degrees is right here. 180 is right here, and 270 is right here. So I'm going to do some number scrubbing and watch what happens to my arc. I'll bring this all the way back to almost 0. And you can see as the number starts to get bigger, my arc is growing, right? And when I reach 90 degrees, right, I sort of have a quarter of an ellipse. When I reach 180 degrees, I have half an ellipse. When I reach 270 degrees, I have 3/4 of an ellipse. And when I get all the way to 360, I have a complete and full ellipse. So you should probably be using an ellipse in this situation. And if I back it up, I have Pac-Man. Okay, so this video was just a review of 5 basic shapes. Now, with these shapes, you can do amazing things by layering them, right? By combining them together. And really, you can take simple shapes and make really interesting and complex shapes. At the end of this video, I'm going to put a link to the next video. We'll see if I can get that to work. On adding all the color features. So, background. The outline, or what we call the stroke weight, making them opaque or transparent, all those different types of things. So once you've watched this video, go ahead and click on the link to the color review for a review of all those features. All right, see you guys next time.